ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that the Epstein files were in existence and free to have been opened during the Biden administration. You were there for 4 years. How come you didn't open it as a Democratic Party then? What am I missing? I'm not saying I know. It's a legitimate question. Maybe I don't remember the answer. Maybe my extraordinary producers should be able to help me during the commercial break. But from my understanding, the same files that were open or being open now with the 220 pages of documents or whatever it is, with various emails, that could have been done when Biden was in office. Well, why didn't you do it? If it's so important now. What were the Democrats doing at that particular moment in time? See? This is the kind of stuff that smells.
Stephen A. Smith on his show Straight Shooter is aligning with his predominantly right-wing audience. He is wrong. Let's be clear. Before we dive in, I must say, quite a reversal, Stephen A.
You're in an uproar off the Epstein list? That's all you've got? It's really, really surprising that this matters. Of course, I think there's a list, but I don't know. I suspect, but I have no knowledge, nor do I care. It's Friday night. I'm getting ready to go out and enjoy myself. I'm getting ready to have a nice weekend. I could give a damn about the client list, the Epstein client list. It has no effect on me whatsoever. I have a life. I don't understand for the life of me why this matters so much to these. I'm talking about people losing it. They're crying on camera. They're talking about resignations. They're pissed off about everything. I'm like, really? With all the stuff going on in this country, with all the power that you possess because of the cachet and the influence you have because of your connection to this administration, that's why you upset at Trump. I didn't blame Trump one bit for looking at them and saying, really? That really matters to you? That's really that important? Now, maybe he had a different reason for saying it, trying to be evasive or whatever. I don't know. But I do know this. In the grand scheme of things, it ain't going to affect the lives of over 200 to 300 million Americans. I think we'll be just fine without knowing whether or not there was really, really a client list. I think we'll be okay. It's unbelievable that this is a big deal to me. It really is.
So he went from, I don't care if the president is a pedo, to, I care, and I'm going to dedicate an entire segment. But you know whose fault it is? It's the Dems' fault. Now.
Joining me again is Miami Herald investigative reporter Julie K. Brown, whose work exposed the extent of Epstein's alleged sex trafficking ring and led to prosecutors reopening the case. She's also the author of a remarkable book, Perversion of Justice, the Jeffrey Epstein Story. Julie, as someone who knows this in depth, who's covered this, who's responsible for keeping this story in the public consciousness, what do you make of the president calling this now a hoax perpetrated by Democrats?
It doesn't make any sense at all.
I'd like to introduce Julie K. Brown, a journalist and author. So when I say the word credibility, it fits with her very, very well on this subject, and it does not with him.
You got involved in this story in 2017, is that right? Is that when you started investigating it? What brought it to your attention, and how did you crack this case?
There was a couple of victims who had filed a lawsuit against the federal government claiming that by doing this deal in the way they did, they violated the Federal Crime Victims' Rights Act. So they filed a lawsuit in 2008, and here it was 2017, and that lawsuit was still sitting there. I thought, why is it taking these girls, women now in their late 20s, 10 years to litigate this case? One of the things that happened simultaneous to that was that Acosta was nominated by Trump to be his labor secretary.
Right.
This man who basically allowed Epstein to practically walk free is now in charge of a huge agency with oversight over human trafficking and child labor laws. I had to really just do a lot of digging, and inevitably you find where they forget to redact a name, or there's part of a name and then a birth date. So it was like this big puzzle. Yeah. I found the names of 60 women, and I tracked them all pretty much all of them down. And then in doing that, then that's when it really veered away from a React story, because just by tracking them down, I found out where their lives had led them.
She saw Stephen A.'s video and tweeted this. This is a complicated case with a lot of files, so I know it's easy to confuse what's what. What Stephen A. Smith does not understand is that the emails released on Wednesday are from Epstein's estate. They were obtained from Epstein's lawyers pursuant to a subpoena that was issued by the House Oversight Committee, as in lawmakers. These documents are separate from the criminal case files held by the Department of Justice and the FBI that Trump and Attorney General Pam Bondi promised to release after the election. More. The next tweet would read, as for why former President Joe Biden and the Dems did not release the criminal case files, Maxwell's criminal case was still open during the Biden administration. She was not convicted until late 2021, and then she appealed that conviction. Generally, it's not a good idea to open your evidence files when a criminal case is ongoing. We also don't know whether the FBI was still investigating other possible suspects who helped Jeffrey Epstein or participated in his crimes. If you are still targeting suspects, you don't want them to know that you're zeroing in on them. Duh. It wouldn't just be her, however. Norman Ornstein of The Atlantic would type, "What you are missing first is apparently any ability to Google something. There was active prosecution of Maxwell, and there was a bar on releasing evidence during her appeals." See, this is exactly the point. This is what drives me insane. Vox would put in their write-up, and this is titled, "Why Didn't Biden Release the Epstein Files?" Here it is. If the files suggest that Trump's involvement with Epstein really was just out of the harmless social variety prior to their reported falling out in 2004, then the Biden admin would have had no obvious political reason to release them. But it also couldn't have done so without court approval. Grand jury testimony is secret by design. It allows jurors to confer about whether to charge someone with a crime confidentially and without outside influence or fear of public backlash. Such testimony is typically only released under exceptional circumstances when a judge determines that the public interest overrides the interest in protecting the identity of witnesses, informants, and other people accused of crimes brought before the grand jury. Another paragraph would read, "As for the remaining digital evidence, it's highly unusual for the FBI to release information unrelated to charging individuals with a crime. There are several reasons that they will do this, including the desire to protect the privacy of the individuals and their reputations and ongoing investigations." The agency has said, however, that there will be no new indictments related to Epstein based on a review of its existing investigation files. And lastly, so even if the Dems wanted to release the files in their entirety during Joe Biden's presidency, it's not clear a court would have granted the request. Trump is now encouraging the same issue, meaning that the firestorm around him might not die down anytime soon. I must say, seeing Stephen A. twist himself into a pretzel on "I don't care about the Epstein files," which on the surface is insane to say, a criminal conspiracy theory where potentially the most powerful man, if not the country, the world, is a pedo. You don't care? Odd. I also think this. Seeing how he just showed up on my television. This is what I do. I turn it off every time. Seeing how he has been so chummy with so many on the right, and seeing how he is practically a Republican. And The Guardian had a write-up of how chummy Steve Bannon was with Jeffrey Epstein. And Stephen A. was being pretty chummy with Steve Bannon, I must say. Is Bannon doing the same thing to Stephen A. that he did with Epstein where he's just running circles around them? I mean, Epstein and Bannon would communicate over email about strategy. They would communicate about his appearances on what they called the Soy Network, MSNBC. I am genuinely curious because I know that they are communicating what is in those emails. Because me personally, I believe that Steve Bannon might be coordinating something with Stephen A. He sees Stephen A's reach. He sees his audience. He sees his popularity. Stephen A has practically said that he regrets a vote against Donald Trump and that he doesn't want to be a Kimmel-like guy. And he's practically going to bend the knee to Trumpism. I'm telling y'all, a lot of this stuff is weird. He's talking about it smells fishy. Your entire shtick smells fishy. I am on to you, dude. And I believe that he is in cahoots with many on the right, especially with messaging. And it's not going to come out now, but it will.